In a world of chaos and mayhem, one series of wars stood out from the rest. These series of wars were fought for what they believed in, and were not over until there was nothing left to fight for. These determined series of wars were known as the Crusades.
Wait, did Kiera just say a series?
Yes, Ishara. She said a series.
Well, what does that mean? How many crusades were there, Jasmine?
Well, there were 4.
Actually, there are 9 distinctive crusades.
But Lorne, the first 4 were the most distinctive and influential in history. The others are just minor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let's get on to the first crusade.
Brianna, didn't that date from 1096 to 1099?
Yep, Jasmine is going to tell us all about it.
Okay. The First Crusade was a Catholic military from Europe that tried to get their previously owned Holy Land that was taken from them in the Muslim conquest of the Levant. It all began with a proclamation from Pope Urban II in Clermont, France, in which he asked for soldiers to travel to the east to attack the Muslims after describing the attacks of the Turks among the Christians in the Byzantine Empire. He promised a papal indulgence to all those who would fight, and this is where the Holy War began. Papal indulgences promised acceptance into heaven or escape from purgatory, and they were purchased by civilians. Most beloved brethren, urged by necessity, I, Urban, by the permission of God, chief bishop and prelate over the whole world, have come into these parts as an ambassador with a divine admonition to you, the servants of God. This is a quote from Pope Urban II, in which he announces the beginning of the Crusades' journey. He explains how the people are carrying out God's wishes by being servants to him.
Wasn't the crusade split up into 4 different parts? The People's Crusade, the Siege of Antioch, the City of Jerusalem, and the Capture of Jerusalem?
Yes.
Oh, well then I know all about the First Crusade. After the Pope's decree, tens of thousands of people joined what was known as the People's Crusade. In March of 1096, these military groups led by Peter the Hermit reached Constantinople. They were almost all killed in an attack by the Turks. This preceded the formation of an official crusading army, which did not depart until the middle of 1096. The most noted leaders were Godfrey of Bouillon, Duke Lorraine, and Tancred. They each led a different division of the army, about 700,000 men. The Crusaders took different routes and reassembled in Jerusalem. They gathered their forces around the northern and western walls of the city and planned their siege. The Crusaders' biggest inspiration was their belief that God would assist them in battle. Led by priests, the armies flooded the streets of Jerusalem, and they were able to completely dominate over their enemies through the use of brute force. They killed many Jews, burned synagogues down to the ground, and took captives to carry bodies out of the city. Despite these mass acts of violence, the Crusaders did, however, use this as an opportunity to expand trade in the West and restructure their new territory into a Christian city. The First Crusade opened in an era which Western Europe came into direct contact with, the great trade routes that united the civilizations of Eurasia for the first time since the fall of the Roman Empire.
Wow, that was a lot. Now let's move on to the next crusade.
Oh, I know all about that one. The Second Crusade started in response to the fall of the County of Edessa. This was the first Crusader state, founded during the First Crusade. It fell to Zanghede and his army, as they besieged the city by building siege engines and rushing into the city, killing those who could not escape. The conquering of this territory by the Muslims caused religious conflict. Pope Eugenius III issued this crusade, and it was led by King Louis VII, accompanied by his wife Eleanor. The first group set out in April of 1147. This group consisted of the Flemings, Frisians, and the English.
They were set out to go to the Holy Land, but were forced to stop on the Portuguese coast due to bad weather. The Crusaders were persuaded by emissaries of Henry of Portugal to join them in the siege of Lisbon from the Muslims. They agreed because they were promised goods and spiritual rewards that they would have received if they had made it to Constantinople. After this victory, the army continued towards Jerusalem, and in 1148 tried to siege Damascus. The siege failed after a few days. This gave confidence to the Muslim armies, and so the Third Crusade began.
Okay, now I know about the Third Crusade. That was the one that lasted from 1189 to 1192, wasn't it?
Yep, it was led by Frederick Barbarossa of Germany, Philip Augustus of France, and Richard the Lionheart of England.
And at this time, the city of Jerusalem was mostly in the hands of Saladin, who succeeded in defeating the Christians in the Battle of Hattin. Saladin was a skilled and powerful sultan who was able to take control of both Syria and Egypt. This ended a long division between the two nations and also provided Muslims with a united Arab front that could be used against the Christians. Saladin's success was soon to come to an end, however. Richard the Lionheart and Philip Augustus met up at the Siege of Acre. The city fell to the Crusaders due to Saladin's inability to break the Christian blockade. In September of 1191, Saladin made an attempt to attack the Christian army at Asfur, but failed to succeed. After many battles with no advances on either side, Richard and Saladin reached a 3-year truce that would allow Christians to enter the city of Jerusalem. Although the Crusaders were not able to complete their goal to recapture Jerusalem, they were able to secure territory in Jaffa where future crusades could launch.
The Fourth Crusade began in 1202 and ended in 1204. In 1200, Pope Innocent asked other European rulers if they wanted to start the Fourth Crusade, an attempt to regain Jerusalem from the Ayyubids. He concocted a plan where instead of coming from the north like always, they would come from the south. On their mission, Alexius Comnenus asked them to help him regain power in Constantinople. In return, he would pay for the rest of the crusade once back in power. They aborted their previous plan to head south and accepted this new plan with Comnenus. They put him on the throne, but failed to receive their payment. Comnenus tried to get their money for them by raising taxes, but the people didn't appreciate that. They killed him and his father, leaving his son Alexius IV in charge. In 1204, the Crusaders attacked and sacked Constantinople, retrieving all of their gold and treasures. Pleased with their success, they returned home, never acting on their plan to regain Jerusalem.
Well, that was interesting. Now let's move on to the Fifth Crusade. The Fifth Crusade was
The fifth crusade? I thought we were just doing the first 4.
Oh yeah, you're right. Well, that means we're all done.
Wait, we're done? That can't be all of it. At least tell us what happened at the end.
What do you mean? Like the very end?
Yes, the very end, after the Ninth Crusade.
Well, after the Ninth Crusade, the Ilkhanate's Mongols were believed to be appealing to Christianity. The Mamluks finally made their assurance beneficial to claim the intact Middle East of the Franks. With the fall of Antioch in 1268, Tripoli in 1289, and Acre in 1291, the Christians that were unable to escape from the cities were murdered or enslaved, and in the Levant, the last deciphers of Christian rule vanished. Wow, that was a lot.
I know, right?
Well, did you at least understand any of it?
Yeah?
Sure.
Kind of.
I think we need a review. Okay, well let me just refresh your memories. Phew. Okay, the Crusades began in 1095. It was a series of holy wars launched by the Christian states of Europe against the Muslims. There were 9 distinctive crusades. 4 were major and the others were minor. The purpose of the Crusades was to rescue the holy places of Palestine from the Muslims. The reason for the Crusades centered on the city of Jerusalem because it held holy significance to the Christian religion. Its initial objective was to seize Holy Land of Jerusalem from the Muslims, but as time passed, the objective became to seize Spain from the Moors, Europe from the Slavs and pagans, and the Mediterranean islands. Are you with me so far?
Yeah, we are.
The First Crusade opened an era in which Western Europe came into direct contact with the great trade routes that united the civilizations of Eurasia for the first time since the fall of the Roman Empire. The first 2 Crusades proceeded over land through Byzantine territory.
The Third Crusade included contingents under the French and English kings Philip Augustus and Richard Lionheart that traveled by sea, and a contingent under the Holy Roman Empire Frederick Barbarossa that took the overland route. Frederick died in southern Anatolia. Later, crusades were mostly seaborne, with Sicily, Crete, and Cyprus playing important roles. Emperors lost their capital and power to Western Crusaders in 1204.
Okay, I think I'm getting it.
With Western Europe now trading with the civilizations of Eurasia, medicines and advances in mathematics came along. Latin works and Greek writings introduced and provided a vital stimulus to European thought. Theologians enjoyed the works of Aristotle and Muslim commentaries.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it is. That's about all for the Crusades.
Good, because that's all my brain can take.
Well, until next time, see ya!